Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Wonder and Create with Emma. My name's Emma, and on my YouTube channel I love to talk through the knitting and crochet patterns and projects that I've been working on or that I've been designing, as well as other yarn related activities such as visiting yarn stores, taking my yarn and knitting in interesting places around the world, and going to events like fibre festivals and knit nights. This is one of my vlog episodes where I catch you up on what I've been working on and show you how far I'm getting with the projects compared to the previous vlog episodes. In between my vlog episodes I do other little tips and tricks episodes. I'm currently working on a Christmas mini-series where I've been looking at yarn stash busting Christmas ideas, either for handmade gifts or homemade decor. So I'd go and check those out after you've watched this video. This week's episode is a chance to catch you up on all the things that I've been working on over the last month or so. And even though I decided that I am not going to be making any handmade gifts this year, I've still been feeling that urge to make a million things. And I've really indulged in that urge recently. It's kind of gotten out of control, and now I don't know how I'm going to finish anything at this point. I'm going to be honest with you all, this is actually the second time I've recorded this video today. I recorded earlier this morning, and it's a very dark day today in Vancouver, so I have been using a ring light to help bring some lighting to my apartment. And I just went to edit it and I realised, because I was wearing my glasses for that first record, you could see the ring light exactly where my pupils were, so it looked ridiculous. I thought I had angled the ring light so you wouldn't be able to see it reflected in my glasses, but I guess once I hit record I adjusted my position and unfortunately you could see it throughout and it just didn't look good. It looked really distracting because it just looked a bit freaky. Instead of seeing my eyes, you could just see the reflection of the ring light. So I am recording again. Kind of frustrating for me, but I just didn't want to put it out there because I felt like it was just quite annoying to look at. So second take is good, and I've not taken the risk with the glasses, and we're going again, even though it's even darker now because it's towards the end of the day. So I have got quite a few whips to show you, but before we get into that, why don't I talk about the one finished object I have from this month, and that is what I'm wearing. It's the Ingrid Sweater by Petite Knit. So if you've been here for a while, you'll know that I started working on this sweater way back in May. I cast it on then, thinking that I would work on it across the summer and it would be ready in time for autumn. That didn't quite happen. I cast it on, I did a tiny bit of the back neck, put it aside and worked on other things and got a bit busy and wrapped up in other pieces. I came back to it in September time and have been working on it since, and I finished it a couple of weeks ago, so I'm really happy, and I will say it has been finished just in time for when the cold weather has really been hitting us here in Vancouver. So I've knit this sweater with Lion Brand yarn, their Fisherman's Wool range, and this colour is like the natural cream colour. I've made the medium size. I think technically if I were to follow the pattern to the T, I should have knit the large size based on my actual measurements. However, the pattern recommends I think 8 to 10 inches of positive ease, and I don't think I wanted a sweater that was quite that loose. I think for me personally, with my body shape, I often think that if something is on the bigger side of positive ease, like looseness, it can look a bit like a tent on me. So I went for the medium size because it was going to give me a little bit of looseness, as you can see, but not so much. So I think I've ended up with maybe 5 or 6 inches of positive ease, which works great for me. And the other reason that I wanted to go with the medium size was because this yarn was yarn that I already had in my stash, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough yarn to make the large size. And spoiler alert, I almost didn't have enough yarn to finish the medium size. So that was another reason it kind of solidified that I was going to follow the medium rather than the large. This is only the second garment that I've made that has this type of construction where you do the back neck first, the shoulders, the front, and then you join together to continue working down. It's not necessarily complicated. I think just in my mind, I always think if you're starting in segments, because I'm so used to doing the raglan or like a circular yoke, the idea that I have to piece something together makes me feel like I personally won't be able to do a good enough job and it won't look seamless. However, I think you can agree, you couldn't tell that it's been constructed in that way, and it ultimately gives a really good fit to the finished garment. I also did really love that this pattern kind of changes the whole way down, like it is a pattern repeat and it keeps changing. I enjoyed that. It's slightly more challenging for me with these like fake looking cables that you have here with the diamond shapes and the crisscrossing. And yeah, I found it good. It kept your brain busy because you were always having to count your rows, and you were changing it up as well. You don't get too bored, as you sometimes can feel with a project if it's just, for instance, like knit stitching constantly. I did make a couple of adjustments to it, nothing too major. It was just to the neck. I think the pattern itself calls for quite a longer like neck body. I'm not sure what you'd refer to that as, but a longer neckline. But I was trying it on as I was doing it, and I decided that I didn't want it much longer. I didn't think it would suit me, and I'm happy that I stopped quite a few rows short of the suggested number of rows that you do for the knit 1x1 ribbing piece on the neckline, and I like the way it's sitting. I did exactly the same for the hem as well. Again, I tried it on and I felt like the length was as long as I wanted it to be, so I think the pattern, it maybe says to do 15 1x1 ribbing row repeats, and I ended up doing 9, I think. So, you know, it's not too much difference, but it was enough that it now sits exactly where I wanted it to be. I have to confess though, when I first put it on, obviously I tried it on when I finished and it hadn't been washed or blocked yet, so it did look kind of all scrunched up, and I knew that it needed to be washed so the stitches could all relax. And I was so excited to have it finished and start wearing it, but when I first put it on after washing and blocking, I wasn't actually sure that it suited me. Like, I loved the look of it in general, of course, that's why I decided to knit it. But I then decided that maybe it was too bulky looking, like with my shape, like being a bit bigger at the top. I felt personally that, and this is obviously my issue, that it made me look like a bit like a triangle, and like, but now I feel differently, and I love it anyway. It's like, it's cozy, comfortable, it's keeping me warm now that it's getting colder here, and I have decided I actually do really like it on me, and it's not what I first thought it was. I got over that, and I've worn it almost every day since I finished it, so I clearly do like it. In other exciting news over the last month, or actually this happened this week, I went to my first knit night. I'm about to go to my first ever knit night. Feeling a little nervous as usual, but I'm also quite excited. Like, I've wanted to do this for a while, kind of meet other knitters and crocheters in the community. There's a local one not too far away from me. I've been meaning to go for quite a while, but first time I signed up to go, I then had a thing with my eye, I think I've mentioned previously, and then I couldn't go to the last one, and now I'm signed up, I've got to go out. It's dark outside, it's cold, there's meant to be some cyclone bomb, don't even know if you can say that on YouTube, happening tonight, but going out anyway. And I have got a shawl that I'm going to take with me to knit while I'm there. It's not something I'm meant to be knitting right now, it was an impulsive cast on, which is a current theme over this last month. I've lost control of my whips, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, I am off, and I will let you know how it goes when I'm back. Hello, I just got back from knit night. I know the lighting isn't great, it's dark, I haven't put all the lights on to make it bright. And I look a bit wet because it is really raining outside, but I wouldn't say it's as windy as I thought. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly pop on because I left the camera up from before I left to say that I had a great time at knit night. It was really nice, of course it was. We know by now, I know this, like, I'm nervous, but I'm always going to have a good time when I get to whatever it is that I'm nervous about. Set myself down on a table with some other people, really friendly, a couple of other Brits I happened to sit next to, of course, so that was kind of nice to share our stories and experiences of how we have come to be in Canada. But yeah, really nice time, really nice venue. I will definitely be going to the next one if I can, but yeah, definitely going to make this a regular thing. So if anyone else is out there knowing there's like knit nights in your area, even not, I know I keep saying knit night, but there were people crocheting, there were people doing like cross stitch, embroidery, and the what's it called, the rug one, I can't remember what you call it, but yeah, there's all sorts going on, so don't let that stop you. And yeah, take it from me, if you're feeling nervous, just go for it. You're gonna make friends, you're gonna talk to people, like, yay. As you can see, I didn't take too much footage from knit night. I kind of, one, because I was having a good time chatting and getting to know people, but also I didn't want to kind of intrude on people's privacy, and they might not want to be on film and then be in the background of a YouTube. And so I just did that tiny 3-second bit of footage there, but safe to say I had a good time and I'm signed up to the next one. So I think casting on lots of projects at this time of year is becoming a bit of a habit for me. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I had ruled out making handmade gifts this year because it does get a bit out of control. Previous years I've made socks or knit socks for all family members, once for all my family, and last year for all of James's family. And as much as I love making socks and I love making handmade gifts, I don't time it very well, so I end up just putting lots of pressure on myself to get them done. Last year I was knitting the final pair on Christmas Day morning and then just an hour or so later giving them away, so I didn't even have time to kind of wash them and stuff. And it just gets a bit too much because I put all this pressure on myself that I want to do it. I haven't given myself enough time, because realistically to give myself enough time I'd have to be starting in January, and I didn't do that. So I thought this year I'd give it a break. However, I've just been getting so inspired, seeing lots of patterns and projects online. As I mentioned before, I have been working on a little Christmas series in the lead up to the festive period. So I've already published 2 episodes around this. One is about using your yarn stash to make handmade gifts and showing you lots of knitting and crochet items related to that. And the one that I published last week was all about yarn stash busting ideas for homemade decor, so Christmas decorations and ornaments. I recommend going and checking that out, but I think in the process of researching those videos, my mind just it sparked a lot of creativity of I want to cast on this, I want to do that. I've got time, I can make all of these things, and now I'm feeling like I'm back to what I was trying to avoid last year. However, there's not too much of a sense of urgency with a lot of these projects. I have to keep reminding myself they're more nice to haves than need to have done for Christmas Day. However, because quite a few of them are festive, one is actually going to be a gift, like the one handmade gift I've got this year. The pressure is on a little bit because we've got a month to go at this point. Yeah. Okay, so I have 4 work in progresses to show you today. I'll start off with one that I've been working on for a while. It was first noted in this YouTube channel in my full knitting plans video. This is a project that I said I wanted to do. It's for my latest nephew, so I hope my sister isn't watching this because it will spoil the surprise, but I don't think she is. So the project that I'm working on is the Stella quilt blanket by Penrose. So this is how far I have got. So basically this is one panel of the design. So her blanket pattern comes, you can customize it to several different sizes depending on what you want it to be, from baby blanket to throw blanket. And obviously I'm going for the baby blanket size, and that requires making 4 of these panels. And I'm enjoying this as a project. I really am loving the look of it. I'm wanting to already thinking this just alone, making a couple of these could be good cushion covers. I'm kind of tempted to do that at some point next year. But the only downside, and this is a me thing, not the pattern thing, is it's taking me quite a lot longer than I anticipated to knit. I kind of had in my head that these squares would be really easy to knit, and they are easy to knit, but it's actually taking me, I figured out, about an hour per square to knit. And I don't know if that's just because you're doing lots of short rows for the increasing and the decreasing of the square. I don't know if that just in general takes a lot more time than if you were just doing knitting back and forth. You also, because it's you join the squares as you go, so you've made your one square, you then pick up stitches along the edge, or sometimes depending on where the square is in the panel, you're picking up stitches across 2 edges and then working that way. So that adds a little bit more time. You're changing colour halfway for quite a lot of them. So yeah, I have 3 more panels to go. I really wanted to gift this at Christmas, so like I say, 4 weeks to go. I'm really going to have to put the time in to get that one done. So this panel has been knit with Rico Baby DK yarn. I've mentioned previously that I bought, so this panel is going to be, you can see it's a green and a cream, so the cream is going to be the base colour throughout, and then I'm planning to do another panel with blue, And then I've got some other colours like purple and orange, so I might do the other two panels like a mix with the green, the blue, the orange and the purple and see what that looks like. Not 100% committed to that yet. I'm going to play around with the colours and see how I feel, but I do have them available. So like I say, this was with Rico Baby DK, but unfortunately, I think I've said before, but I couldn't find, bought the green and the ball, the green and the blue Baby DK yarn when I was back in the UK, and I didn't really question that I wouldn't be able to get it here, but actually really struggled back in Canada to find the cream. It was just, not that I couldn't find it, but it just wasn't in stock anywhere, from the bigger online stores like Love Crafts to smaller yarn stores, independent yarn stores. I couldn't find it anywhere in stock, and that was kind of frustrating because I've used this yarn before for baby projects and I really like it because it's so soft, and obviously it's acrylic yarn so you can easily wash it and dry it and not have to worry about it, which I feel like is perfect for parents. And then I eventually did find a store over in Ontario that had it in stock, so I bought it. But then after purchasing, they messaged me to say that unfortunately they didn't have the number in stock that was listed on the website. They only had one ball available. And at that point, I kind of accepted my fate and said that was fine, send that one. And they offered some other yarn that was the same colour and weight, etc. So they offered to kind of switch it for that, which I went for. It was difficult because I couldn't see or feel that yarn to know, but luckily it has turned out fine. They sent it to me. That package got lost in the post, so it did take a month or maybe more, maybe 5 weeks to get here in the end, which added, the delay on casting the blanket on. But we're here now. So that one is pretty much all, this panel was all the same yarn, apart from the last square I had to switch it up because the ball of the Rico yarn ran out, so I used a new one, but luckily the colour is really well matching, the weight is matching. It's maybe not quite as soft as the other one, but I think maybe with the wash you wouldn't know if you weren't the one making it. So yeah, I'm going to have to use that other yarn going forward, but I think it'll be okay. And the purple and the orange yarns are also different brands, so it's going to be a mix, but they all feel quite soft. I think it's going to be okay. So yeah, wish me luck on getting the other 3 panels done over the next 4 weeks. Yikes. My next whip is the Betty and Judy Lodge sweater by Poison Girls. This was a very impulsive cast on, but there were 2 reasons why it came to be on my needles. Number one was that it occurred to me that I had left all my Christmas sweaters or jumpers in the UK from when we were back home last Christmas. And I have a few Christmas activities lined up here in Vancouver, have my work Christmas party, and then just going out and about, like doing the Stanley Park Christmas train and going to some other light-based activities, and it would be really nice to have a Christmas jumper for those. So there was that, number one. Number two, when we were back in the UK last year, we were visiting James's mum, and she pulled out all these boxes of yarn that she had and told me that I could help myself. Like, how generous is that? And I couldn't take too much because we were coming back to Canada and because we were moving back here. We had a lot of stuff to take already. But some of the yarn that I pulled out was these. I took 3 balls of this red yarn. I think I've lost the ball band, or I never had it, I don't know. And then 2 white ones, different yarn, different brand, but I picked out 2 of those with making a Christmas jumper in mind. It is acrylic yarn, but anyway, so the other day when I was looking through my box of yarn, I remembered that I had these Christmas coloured yarns, and that I am already like thinking about how I would like to have a Christmas jumper. And of course, rather than buying one, I think, oh, I'll just make one. And I had the pattern for the Betty and Judy Lodge sweater. I've had it for a few years now, and every year I've thought about making it and then never have because other things have taken over, mainly the handmade gifts. And so I think what happened is I thought, well, I'm not making handmade gifts, maybe I can make myself a sweater. So anyway, I did a gauge swatch, realised that it would work for the pattern, and I immediately just cast on and got going. So here is how I've got so far, and I cast this on 2 weeks ago. So here it is. So as you can see, I've done the body, and I'm halfway, or maybe not even halfway quite yet, on one sleeve. I've got one more sleeve to go and the neckline. I really love this pattern. As with all Poison Girls patterns, I've made 2 of her patterns previously. I really love that vintage look. And although the patterns are a little more complicated than, you know, a simple sweater or cardigan or whatever it is pattern, because you want that shaping of the vintage, like waist shaping and quite often like a puff sleeve, it's always worth it for the look. So because it's on 5mm needles, it's knitting up pretty quickly. As I say, I started this 2 weeks ago. The colour work pattern here, the pattern calls for stranded colour work or intarsia, and just because of yarn considerations, obviously stranded colour work does use quite a lot of yarn going around. And so I tried intarsia, but I'm pretty sure I've never done intarsia style knitting before. So this was the first, and I think for me it's ended up looking a little messy. Maybe it's going to be just only I know kind of thing, but I might do some duplicate stitching over the top just to neaten it up a little bit. But regardless, I'm happy with how it's looking. This one is, I am winging it a little bit. So though I said I have done a gauge swatch, and I did, I actually was a little bit off with my gauge. So I think the pattern says that there'll be 19 stitches in a row for 4 inches, but my gauge was 20 stitches. But I worked out that with the measurements, because the pattern, it says it's recommended like around like 0 ease, that if I followed the instructions for the large size, that my final measurements would be close to the medium measurements, but either way, like very close to being a 0 ease on my bust measurement. So I think it's going to be just slightly, maybe an inch bigger than like my actual bust measurement, which is fine by me. I don't mind having a little bit of room to be able to wear underneath. And also on top of that, so I was doing that, that's kind of fine. The colour work section with that white yarn, the white yarn is actually slightly bulkier than the red yarn. So I adapted again a little bit, and I followed the medium sizes for that portion so that the width would remain the same, but I did stick to the right length because to keep the arm right. There's a little bit of maths. It's a little bit of winging it. It's not going to be absolutely perfect. I know that. But I'm okay with it because ultimately I'm only going to be wearing it once a year for a very short period of time. It doesn't have to be completely perfect. And I know I'm kind of lucky because I'm using yarn that I got for free and was in my stash. Actually, the green of the holly is from the same yarn that I'm using for that Stella quilt blanket, because I realised I have enough, more than I need for the blanket, so I could probably spare enough to do the holly leaves, and I'm really happy about that because I think that shade of green with this shade of red, it is really like fulfilling that vintage style. So I'm hoping to have this done fairly quickly within the next week, because then that's when the Christmas activities for me will start. So I'm hoping if I can get it finished by next weekend and I have time to wash it, block it, etc., it'll be ready for me to wear out and about. So kind of really looking forward and excited to finishing that. Even though it's not a priority, now I'm in it and it's going fairly quickly, I'm eager to get it done. My next whip is a knitted shawl. So the yarn, the sock yarn that I picked up when I was in Coopville in Washington a month or 2 ago, I picked up this sock yarn. It's hand dyed in Coopville. I really loved this kind of reddy brown colour of it, and it's like slightly variegated. And I knew it was a souvenir purchase, but I knew that I didn't want to make socks with it, which is normally my go-to and something I love doing, but I felt like for this yarn I was going to try and do something different. So I wanted to make a shawl or a scarf. And I happened to watch a video by The Lovely Yarn. I think that's the account channel. And she had a video that was all about like one skein projects, like built around this idea of you have the souvenir skein of yarn that you've purchased on your travels, what are you going to do with it? And she was highlighting a bunch of patterns. And one of the patterns she highlighted was the Woven Shawl by Casapinka. And as soon as I saw this pattern pop up, I knew that this was the perfect one, and that's what I wanted to cast on. I think because the pattern had been designed like specifically for variegated yarn, and although I didn't think that the colours contrasting variegation was too high here, I felt like I just really liked the overall look of it. So I cast this on about a week ago, and here we are. Oh, actually the lighting is showing it's really variegated, more than I can see without this bright ring light. But yeah, so it's kind of, I'm not too familiar with my shawl shapes. This is probably, I think this might be the first knitted shawl I've ever done actually. But it's a really straightforward pattern. There's just 4-row repeats. It's mainly slip and knit stitching, so really straightforward. And you have to do like 74 repeats of these 4 rows. I'm just over halfway through, I think. But it's a really portable project because it is so straightforward. Once you've got those 4 rows memorized, you can just keep going back and forth. So I took it, you might have spotted, I took it to the knit night. I've been taking it to work with me so I can knit a bit on my commute and maybe on lunch breaks as well, while I've been watching TV. And I know this really isn't the priority given the other things I've been telling you about, but I think because it is such a nice knit that I don't have to think too much about, I have just been really enjoying doing that compared with like the quilt that requires a bit more concentration. And the colourwork piece on the Betty and Judy Lodge sweater was, a little bit more complicated. Now I'm on the sleeves. That's not so bad, but I've been really enjoying this one. And, it is getting colder here. I do need a bit more protection around my neck. And I just love the colour of this. And I think it will work really well with my coat that I normally wear to work and stuff. So I am excited to have it finished. But I have to keep reminding myself that it's not quite the priority. Okay, my last whip of this video. It's really festive, very much inspired by my last video all around the patterns for Christmas decorations and ornaments. I've started making paper chains, or well, like knitted paper chains anyway. So the pattern that I've been following is the paper chain garland by Vikki Howell. This is a free pattern on their website. And it's a very simple, straightforward pattern. You're making strips, like garter stitch strips, and you simply sew them together, loop them together to have that paper chain look. So I was going through my yarn stash and seeing what I had that I could use for this project. And I have lots of different colours. I don't necessarily have loads, I would say, that traditional festive look. So instead, I'm just going to use lots of different colours, maybe draw out the festive theme by dotting in like red and greens and whites throughout, but ultimately it is going to be quite colourful. I'm thinking that I'm going to be making this to take and decorate my like kind of cubicle at work. So it may be something that I end up keeping all year round if I feel like it's not too festive, but I really like it and brings some kind of colour to my workspace. So the pattern itself, I think, calls for a slightly lighter weight yarn that I'm using. So I'm opting, because a lot of the stash that I've selected is worsted weight yarn, and I do have some fingering and stuff in there, but I'm just going to, hold 2 or 3 strands together to make it up to a similar weight. So they, in the pattern, it's casting on 12 stitches and knitting for 12 inches. And I started doing that and I felt like it was looking a bit thicker, thicker than I wanted the strips to be. And then also the loops were much bigger than I wanted it to be. So I have hacked the pattern a little bit. This is clearly a theme of this episode. And I instead have cast on 6 stitches and knit to 8 inches. So this is one of the ones I've done, obviously pink, not festive. And then it's kind of going to look like that once I've sewn it together, which I kind of think is a good size. And then I've got the blue. It's not going to be an accurate portrayal here. But it's going to look a little something like this as I go. And I think that's kind of a good size for paper chain lookalikes. Yeah, so this again is not a priority, but it's very easy and quick. I actually only started these this morning, earlier in the day. I quickly cast these on and made a couple, and then started on a third. And yeah, none of these colours so far are particularly traditionally festive, but I have got the red that I'm using on that Betty and Judy sweater, and then whites and greens and stuff. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, I'll have to keep reminding myself it's not the priority. Yes, decoration would be nice, not urgent, but anyway, it's a very easy pattern and you can very easily make it beginner knitters also. Just get yourself some yarn. I think any kind of yarn will do. Cotton or acrylic is probably best, but I'm going to be using a mix of acrylic, wool, cotton, all sorts. So I would just go for it. So that's all from me for this week. I hope you enjoyed catching up on what I'm working on. I'd love to hear what you're working on as well, so drop a note in the comments below and share what you're working on. Are you going to be making handmade gifts this year or not, or are you opting out like me? Do you have a better way to manage your time when you decide you are making handmade gifts? How do you pace yourself out so you don't end up working all the way through to Christmas morning? If you have tips, I'd love to know them. But yeah, please give this video a like if you've enjoyed it and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes coming from me. I've got at least one more Christmas themed video coming up, so stay tuned for that. And I will see you next time for another episode of Wander and Create with Emma. Bye!